2022 Winter Classic Student Cluster Competition Studio Update Show. Now, here are your hosts, Dan Olds and Addison Snell.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to another 2022 Intersect 360 Research Winter Classic Invitational Student Cluster Competition Studio Update Show. And for one more time, I'm Addison Snell alongside Dan Olds. Dan, we've reached the end of the competition, and boy, it was a good one.
We have reached the end of the competition. It was a barn burner, and after a couple of false starts, here we are back again in the saddle, back in uniform for the show. Before we get started,
we've done a lot of these videos. This is the magic of doing them live. Now we got this going.
Yeah, we're probably going to end up with close to 40 at the end of it. I still have content I have to put out. But we're going to start this with a very special welcome message from a guy who's been a great supporter of student cluster competitions virtually from the beginning of them, and also one of the great voices in HPC. And I'm talking about Jack Dongarra, who also had a little event in his life. Addison, what was that recently?
He's a recent Turing Award recipient. Boy, so if he wasn't a luminary already, now it's been internationally recognized, like we needed another affirmation.
I know.
Really
another
grateful
reason, yes.
Really grateful to Jack for his support. Let's hear what Jack has to say.
Hi, I'm Jack Dongarra from the University of Tennessee and Oak Ridge National Lab, and also on the advisory board for the Winter Classic Competition. I'd like to thank Dan and Addison for inviting me to welcome you to the 2022 Winter Classic Competition Gala Award Ceremony. This is the second year of the competition, and it's the newest major student cluster competition event, fitting nicely between the SC competition in November and the ASE competition in spring. It's impressive to see the level of effort and time put into these competitions, this with 12 teams and 50 students in this competition. We hope that the Winter Classic will serve to challenge and inspire the next generation of HPC scientists and engineers to deliver innovative solutions using the most cutting-edge technologies. The competition has been described as the world's largest supercomputing hackathon, striving to foster the next generation of young talent to inspire exploration, innovation, and collaboration in supercomputing and AI. Your efforts in designing, training, tuning, and optimizing the benchmarks and real-world scientific applications, all using the same hardware, getting hands-on experience on real-world applications and HPC systems. I'm sure that this competition has brought many challenges, but I'm also sure that most of these challenges were overcome. It's stimulating to see you working so hard to solve problems, spending many hours getting up and running your applications, and not just getting them up and running, but running efficiently. Computational science is the fusion of mathematics, computer science, and domain science, and I'm sure your team has experienced that fusion. I know that this has been a learning experience and that you and your teammates will take away a better understanding of how to work together as a team, assist one another, and the importance of fellowship and collaborations. I have to say it brings me great joy to see you as the next generation of computational scientists. I hope that this will give you a deeper understanding of scientific computing in general. I want to thank the sponsors, mentors, vendors, coaches, and of course, you, the students, for taking part. Good luck to you all, and I look forward to hearing about the winning results.
That was very nice of Jack to record. We really appreciate that.
Well, terrific to hear from Jack. And of course, he's talking about all of these student cluster competitions, which are extremely important. And I'd like to give a quick history of this one because, Dan, you got this started this year, and he was talking about how it fits into the overall cycle of student cluster competitions that go on at major conferences across the year. But then what makes this one special? It's not just that it fits in between the supercomputing and the next one. You noticed that the other ones that are tied to the major conferences, there's an opportunity to have a virtual competition, which we can then structure a little bit differently. And because it is virtual, we have the opportunity to target colleges and universities that are not well represented on the major conference circuit. In this case, specifically do outreach to historically Black colleges and universities and Hispanic serving institutions.
Absolutely.
To form the population of the teams for this student cluster competition. And I give you all the credit for getting that started last year before you were part of Intersect 360 Research. I'm delighted that we're able to carry it forward now that you're part of our team here.
Well, I'm really glad that you've embraced it. There's, a few things that are unique about this, not just the teams that we're focusing on, the schools that, don't have much in the way of HPC resources to use. But this year in particular, we've changed the architecture of student cluster competing to lengthen it out and to bring in mentors to not just host the clusters, but also teach the students on the application that the mentors have chosen that's been kind of near and dear to their heart.
Yeah, exactly. And that's taking advantage of the nature of the virtual competition.
Yes.
And, just to describe briefly what we're talking about, typically what we're used to is at a conference, it's all compressed into the time of the conference. You can have vendor sponsorship.
2-3
vendors,
days.
the vendors are all responsible for hardware and their sponsorship. Well, what this let us do is, first of all, elongate the conference where the students get to spend time on one application, on one resource, really digest it, and then move to the next one. And that was made possible by separating out the sponsorship from the mentorship model.
Exactly.
And you could do either one or both even, but the mentors were our hosts who were responsible for teaching the skills to the students, bringing them along on the particular applications, and the sponsors could just throw resources at it. And that's also
which is okay with us. It helps.
We need that too.
Had to have it.
They're both important. And the last thing I'll say about that is we always talk about developing the next generation of talent and introducing high performance computing to more students. In this case, you were saying they haven't had access to these resources. It seemed to me like the majority of the students had no prior experience with high performance computing at all. This is a from ground zero, never seen Linux, never seen parallel computing. And here is the crash course introduction. And some of them really took to it. It was a lot of fun.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And in this brief, 3 hours and 35 minutes, we're going to recognize the teams. I'm kidding. We're going to recognize the teams. We're going to recognize the mentors, the sponsors, and we might even give out some awards along the way and let you know how this turned out. But first, let's take a look at the teams.
Let's meet the teams.
Let's meet the teams.
We had 12 teams participating in the Winter Classic Student Cluster Competition. You want to start kicking us off?
Sure. We had 2 teams from Channel Islands, California State University Channel Islands, which I'm sad to say I didn't know existed.
I have had 2 sons going through the Cal State system, and I was not familiar with the CSU Channel Islands, but they put together 2 teams. They're in Southern California. They were both very enthusiastic, really engaged. I love dealing with these students. And then they're not the only Cal State either. Cal State Fullerton had a team in the competition. So Cal State really well represented.
And we had Fayetteville State University from Fayetteville, North Carolina, other end of the country. They also had the distinction of having the youngest student who's still a high school senior on their team. That's right.
Andres Ayala Lagunas is a high school student on that team. And it was fun to see that participation as well. Florida A&M, FAMU was a great participant.
And they'd been in before.
Morehouse had essentially 2 teams. There was an all Morehouse team and then a combination Morehouse-Spelman team.
And then we had Prairie View, and they have the distinction of being the very first team to sign up for the competition last year, which was great. And we're going to hear a lot about Prairie View tonight. We're going to hear a lot about Prairie View A&M as well as the next team on there, Tennessee State. These are the teams. We're going to say a little more about this later, but these are the teams duking it out on the leaderboard going into the final week. And we'll get to that a little more later. Texas Tech University also had 2 teams in the competition, Team Matador and Team Red Raider. That was a lot of fun. And I love these 2-team schools where you get a little intra-school rivalry. They're not just concerned about how they're doing, but how are they doing next
next to the other team.
For my part, I tried to stir the pot between them as much as possible.
I know you
saying,
did.
The other team really can't stand you guys. But I did see those two teams together breaking bread a couple of times, and at least there wasn't any fisticuffs when I was
bread,
watching.
But not breaking bones. And no. Texas isn't done because they had the UTEP in there as well. Another
very
really
strong team.
I enjoyed interacting with all these. And for any of you who haven't gone and watched all the videos, we had introduction videos with all the students on all of these teams, as well as sponsored meal events where they could go out, take a break from the competition.
Meal events are still on the way. So there's going to be some more content. And if you haven't watched all of our studio update shows, ask yourself, why not?
Well, there's, what I really like is the chance to interact with the students who are signing up for this weird challenge. Now, we're a small company, Dan, and we can't do this all on our own. And this is really made possible by the mentors and the sponsors.
Yes.
And let's take a look.
We're going to take a look at the mentors right now. And boy, that's quite a slate of mentors.
Right. And the mentors, as we said before, are the ones who are essentially hosting for the different challenges. The team started out at HPE, and the first challenges were high performance LINPACK. We just heard from Jack Dongarra, who is one of the progenitors of the HPL benchmark, as well as HPCG, the high performance conjugate gradient. People who are top 500 fans will know those. It's a great first introduction to those benchmarks. From there, they went on to NASA. They had a pop quiz week in between. Yeah. There was a down week where we put together some fun content. We'll talk about that. Then they went to NASA for the NAS Parallel benchmarks. Big challenge there. Oak Ridge National Labs was a new sort of challenge, and we'll talk about all of these in a little more detail. But getting to work on those heavy GPU nodes, doing
machine
learning, and then Open Foam as an application on AWS. And then you see BioTeam on there as well. You remember playing sandlot football as a kid? You'd have an odd number, and so you designate someone to be all-time offense. This was your all-time offense floating mentor who could parachute in and help any team that needed a little extra.
And they did, and we are very grateful to BioTeam for doing that. Shane Corder, who some of you have met, he's good. He's like scary good.
The training, the materials that those mentors all put together for the students are really commendable. And
hours and hours of materials.
Sponsors, Dan.
Wouldn't happen without the sponsors. And we've got to give it up for our platinum level sponsors, Intel, who some of you may have heard of, Oracle Cloud Infrastructure, who I know you've all heard of, and Penguin Solutions. They really came through for us and very much appreciated. But we also have some other sponsors. Gold level sponsor, HPE Enterprise, and silver level. And
silver was Lenovo. I saw
silver was Lenovo. You caught it. It was quick.
There. HPE was doing double duty as both a sponsor and a mentor.
Yes. And then we have at the bronze sponsor and also sponsoring the championship award, Microsoft Azure. And
really grateful to all the sponsors. This is what enables us to do this and then bring it back again next year. So to the mentors and the sponsors who enabled this competition, thank you very much.
Yes.
One more thing. Part. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Dan.
I think we were going to say the same thing. We could probably say it in unison, but I want to extend a big thanks to Tom Tabor, Tabor Communications, and HPC Wire for allowing us for letting us use them as a megaphone to put out all of our stories and the studio cluster competition update shows and all of that. Tom got this competition from the beginning, and he understands these competitions and what they're trying to do.
Tabor Communications, HPC Wire have been great media partners for Intersect 360 research and everything that we do, including both of our podcasts, me on This Week in HPC, you're on Radio Free HPC.
And the very popular Radio Free HPC.
Goes well beyond this student cluster competition, but grateful for the promotion that we've gotten from HPC Wire and Tabor Communications as well.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
And we'd like to bring in Justin Hotard, who's the general manager of HPC and AI at HPE. And we would like to bring in Trish Damkroger, who's a new hire, a newbie at HPE as the chief product officer. How are you guys doing tonight?
Doing well.
Great. Yeah. And you're going to be telling us what happened in HPCG and the LINPAC.
That is correct, Dan. So we are thrilled to be here, and I'm thrilled to have Trish with me, who's more than just a new employee at HPE, but I'll let her tell you a little bit about that when she talks. She's an active participant in this event.
Oh yeah.
But look, first of all, I just want to say congratulations to all of you. I mean, first to Dan and Addison for running such a great event, and then to, most importantly, to all of the students participating. At HPE, we're thrilled to be among the sponsors and the mentors, and also a contributor to the Scholarship Award Fund as well. So,
if I could just stop you there, they're not just contributors; they more than doubled the scholarship, the award fund, from the $12,000 that Addison and I put in, up to $30,000, with Justin putting in $6,000 personally, although we haven't collected it from him yet.
Yeah, let's just be clear. I'm only sending that check to Addison, Dan. So
probably, it'll be in good hands. No, we will make sure it gets to the right place. And really, all joking aside, we're extremely grateful.
Yes, we are. And I can resent but not deny your wisdom in sending it to Addison.
I just don't want it to get lost, Dan. That's all. So look, I think we're thrilled, and personally, I think this is such a powerful event because it's more than just a competition. It's actually about helping all of you become future technology leaders. And I think from everybody that's here that's going to speak to you on this event, that's participated, we've all had the benefit of having mentors and coaches and probably angels along the way that have helped us get to where we are. And so this is really something that for us at HPE and for me personally, we feel is really valuable, because what we're doing at HPC isn't just about pushing technology and creating new applications and services. That's great, but what we're really doing is changing the world, and the impact that we're having on real world problems, not just real world problems, but scientific breakthroughs, advancing the research in space, pandemic research, which is all near and dear to our heart these days, security and defense, climate research, right? There are so many places that this technology touches and shapes, and has touched and shapes that's created the world that we live in today, that it's more than just a technology event. It's about actually impacting and shaping the world. And that's what we're so committed to at HPE is being a force for good. And that's why we're committed to continuing to invest to be leaders in this industry, along with many of the great sponsors we just saw on Dan and Addison's chart. So what happens though is, doesn't matter how much we do it, we can't do it without students like you pursuing careers in this space and creating the future. So we're really thrilled that you're a part of it, and we're very honored to be able to mentor and sponsor and coach you along the way. But before I go on and announce the winners, Trish, I'd love for you to say a few words, and let me just say, Trish joined us on Monday as the Chief Product Officer for the HPC and AI business unit. And Trish, welcome to HPE, and thanks for joining us today.
Thanks, Justin, and thanks, Dan and Addison. I mean, I have been a part of the HPC community for a long time, and everybody knows how dear it is to me. And part of these student cluster competitions, I mean, this all started back in SC07. I remember Reno and having the first student cluster competition. And so I am very happy that I've been able to support this while I was at Intel and now at HPE. Part of the advisory board for this. You've been there since day one. And I'm going to say, without you, the first one wouldn't have happened. Oh, that's seriously. I think it's without the students, this wouldn't happen. Yes. We're just here to enable the students. And that's what this is all about. I am a huge fan of STEM and developing the next generation. And so what I want to encourage you is fall in love with HPC the way I have, and then come and join us in this world, and maybe at HPE, so that we can be truly making the world a better place, because that's what HPC does. So I'll hand it back to you, Justin, to announce.
Let's hear it.
Great. Yeah, I think Dan and Addison are probably tired of us talking now, Trish. So we'll get to the winners. So look, I'll kick it off with LINPACK, and I'll let Trish announce the HPCG winner. So LINPACK, we actually had a pretty classic podium finish.
Yes.
Even though this is a winter classic, it looked a little bit like Formula One. We had in third place we had University of Texas El Paso. Only 1.67% off the pace on LINPACK. That's very impressive. In second place, Tennessee State. We were talking about them earlier. Only 1.5% off the first place. So 1.67% between third and second, 1.5% between second and the first score. And what we ended up having, as you guys may know, is a Texas sandwich on the podium, with Texas Tech Team Red Raider taking the top prize. So congratulations to all of the winners, but congratulations to all of you that completed it, because finishing LINPACK, as Trish and I can attest to, is actually an accomplishment in itself. So Trish, over to you.
Yes, I agree with that. So I get to announce the HPCG winner, and this was a little different. I mean, we had Tennessee State University reduce the problem size to the point where it completely fit into the cache. And they notched a score that was 31% higher than the rest of the field. An amazing job. Great job, Tennessee State University.
And that's exactly what benchmarkers do. And right. Thank you so much, Trish and Justin. We really appreciate you coming up and doing your presentation turn.
Really appreciate HPE and all the contributions. Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks again to all the students.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
And this brings us to our next event, which was the pop quiz. And let's get a little look at what that looked like.
Pop quiz was a lot of fun. We had a scheduling gap between when HPE was available and when NASA was available. And rather than just have the students cooling their jets, part of what we want to do with the student cluster competition is introduce high performance computing. And you had the idea, Dan, to put together some reading materials with the history and context of high performance computing, including up to today, and what some of the newsworthy events are. And it was an opportunity for the students to get introduced to HPC at a high level. So how'd that go?
That went well. It was not as much fun to put together as you might think, because I had to go out and do research, which, although I am the chief research officer here.
What's your job again?
I know, but it's not like it's a hobby. But it was fun to put together some of the questions, and I think most of the supercomputing people out there understand this. And the one I love is Seymour Cray saying, "If you're plowing a field, what do you want? 2 strong oxen or 1,024 chickens?" The answer back then, his answer was 2 strong oxen, but the technology has definitely gone towards the side of 1,024 chickens.
This was a fun quiz you put together.
Yeah.
We graded the student. We expected them to read in advance, and then rather than Google as they went. So the students were graded not only on the accuracy, but how quickly they went through it. I tried your pop quiz, and I'm proud to say I earned a good solid B.
You did.
I'm very pleased with that score.
And actually, let's talk about the scores of it. UTEP was number 1. And
way to go, UTEP.
Very good. Second was the Texas Tech Red Raiders. And of course, Tennessee State has to get their nose in. They were 3rd.
Well, let's talk about that for a second, because Tennessee State at this point had been in the top echelon on all of the challenges, but they really blew the field away on HPCG. And that gave them a cushion that at that point, it seemed like someone else was going to be waiting for Tennessee State to falter. That Tennessee State was really pinging, and they had a lead that they were going to try to sustain. We'd never seen anyone go wire to wire in a competition like this before, dominating all the challenges. But here was Tennessee State doing very well in each of the first three. And at this point, they had a sizable lead over the field because specifically of HPCG.
Yes. And let's transition then to the next challenge, which was NASA and NASPAR. We've got Sherry Chang here with us. Sherry, if you want to activate your video and your audio, she's the Senior Performance and Productivity Engineer at NASA. And she's going to talk to us a little bit about how that came out. Sherry, I think, is getting herself back in here. This would be the pause that we take sometimes in these award ceremonies. You see it at the Oscars.
Well, this was another opportunity that we had. We had a conversation with NASA and NASA Ames. They were very enthusiastic of this right out of the gate. So really appreciated the participation here, and they selected out some of their NASA Parallel benchmarks as appropriate for this challenge. Is Sherry ready?
As a representative of NASA, I'm glad to say that the NASA team, we were really happy to be a part of this competition. We were very happy that the students, a lot of them, they did really well. The quality of the questions asked during the week through the Slack channel, some of them are really very thoughtful questions, and we were happy that they are learning really well. Many of the teams did really well on all three benchmarks. Okay, so for the three benchmarks, the winner for the BTMZ, the highest score goes to Fayetteville State University. For the SPMZ, the highest score goes to Tennessee State University. For the LUMZ, the highest score goes to Florida Agriculture and Mechanical University. And overall, the highest average score goes to Tennessee State University. Congratulations to all the winning universities.
Thank you so much, Sherry. We really appreciate it. Addison, question. Should I pay Zoom full price for this webinar, given these technical problems? I'm thinking I'm going to short up.
We just had a little bit of a lag. You'd think after 2 years into the pandemic that we would be past these things, but these happen from time to time. We're getting a little used to it. But here again, we had Tennessee State post the highest average score. So anyone who is looking to chip into that lead, Tennessee State had.
They couldn't do it.
Could not do it, and the lead was still there. It didn't really grow very much. There were other teams that were still competing quite strongly, but Tennessee State was still in that lead.
Couldn't make up any ground. Let's take a look at our next challenge, which was the machine learning challenge from Oak Ridge.
I really loved this.
Yes, I did too. We're going to hear from Dan and Suzanne at Oak Ridge to tell us a little bit more about it.
So I'm Dan Dietz. I'm from Oak Ridge National Lab. For our portion of the competition, we deviated a bit from some of the other mentor organizations in our application, and we introduced a machine learning application. And so we took some large data sets where we reduced and described them in a more manageable form. In particular, this data set describes some cosmological phenomena such as supernovas. So we thought this would be a more interesting data set for the teams to kind of get their hands on a real world data set rather than just some artificial benchmarks and things like that. So the students were challenged to understand how the machine learning model worked, how the different parameters all work together to kind of optimize the result that they got out of it. And of course, then you scale the model over the GPUs available on the Ascent cluster. So I think that the teams asked a lot of great questions and really picked up the material very well. So I hope they learned some valuable skills. So now I guess we'll hand it over to Suzanne to talk about how we prepared the students to work on this exercise.
Thanks, Dan. So as Dan said, the exercises required the students to use both the CPU and the GPU, which is the thing that Orinel does really well because that's our architecture for our machine Summit. So we ran a high performance computing crash course that taught the students first fundamentals in recorded lectures, like how to use Unix and Vim. And we assume they probably know that, but it had a little bit of secret sauce stuff in there that they might not have known. And then we gave them sets of challenges with self-guided DIY exercises to teach how to do parallel distributed computing between the GPU and the CPU. Of course, we supported this with lectures from our team. And the students did pretty good. We did a leaderboard, and 2 or 3 students, of course, were the ones that always got the challenges done first. We had about 6 challenges that were required. They're small things like learning how to use OpenMP, which is a shared memory parallelism tool that can also offload to the GPU. And then we had some like how to use compilers, and there were about 8 other challenges that taught them other aspects of how to use the machine. So Dan, why don't you tell us about the results?
Sure, yeah. So overall, the teams did very well. We had 4 teams that actually tied for first place with perfect scores of 100 points. And then we had a 5th team that came in a very close second place with 95 points. So the second place team with 95 points were the Texas Tech Matadors. And then the 4 first place winners with perfect scores, in no particular order, were Tennessee State, Prairie View A&M, the Texas Tech Red Raiders, and the University of Texas El Paso. So congratulations to those teams and a great job to everybody else.
This was a lot of fun. And here we are at this stage of the competition. There was one challenge left, going to AWS as the mentor. And you and I did a studio update show at this point, Dan, looking at the leaderboard, and we still had Tennessee State with that big lead. We were theorizing that at that point they maybe couldn't be caught. But what we were talking about is there was a very tight grouping from second place to sixth place.
That was
incredible.
They were
all very close together. That were
been about 35
the other teams
points
that have been solid all the way through. And then there was a gap, and Tennessee State was up here. Could anyone jump from that thick peloton? That was the Chase peloton to go reel in the leader. We were dubious about that, but there was that thick peloton and Tennessee State out in front, and that set us up for the final technical challenge at AWS. And we'll bring in Ian Coley from AWS to talk about that.
Hey, Ian, how are you tonight? Thank you for joining us.
I'm doing well, Dan.
Good. So what happened? It was epic.
We've got some amazing future HPC application engineers here. We gave them a real world problem that any HPC engineer would be doing if they were working at Boeing or Formula One or any number of places where they're using computational fluid dynamics on a daily basis. And we said, here are the AWS resources, have at it.
And they were modeling airflow over a motorcycle, right?
They were doing the standard motorbike test case, which is, kind of one of those that any engineer would have to do to just verify how their systems are doing. And it was quite impressive to see the ingenuity of the students and the way they really tackled this problem.
And this was pretty loosely structured on purpose. You knew what the drag coefficient was supposed to be. And the challenge was get this to run as fast as possible, but the drag coefficient has to stay within these bounds in order to be a valid run.
Right. You still have to hit the quality to get the right answer, so to speak.
And then run it 500 times too.
And you want to do it as quickly as possible for those 500 runs. So it's not just optimizing a single run, but how do you optimize over a series of runs?
That was amazing. And in talking to your team afterwards on an interview that's up on HPC Wire now, if somebody wants to check it out, Neil Ashton was almost giggling with glee when he said one team found it. What was it?
Much as we saw with the LINPACK results, right?
Or the HPCG.
HPCG.
Yeah.
When you find it, right, the secret of making it small enough, and in this case, It was how small are you going to make the surface that you're evaluating? And one team figured that out. And that made all the difference.
That made, they had to run it also on AMD and Intel instances. If I remember right, on the Intel instance, it was, they were about 6.5x less time than the competition. And on AMD, about 8x less. I might have those numbers reduced.
Oh, it's even more impressive.
Orders of magnitude.
And I can go over it if you want me to do a 3, 2,
Sure.
1. But let's just say that as you saw in the numerical results, the pack, they got it to solve, but the one team that found that key to unlock the lock, just far and away, it's just night and day when you see how performant the systems can be. And it was interesting to see that variability to where it wasn't the same 3 teams. It was like one team got a little bit better on Intel, one team got a little bit better on AMD. And that was really interesting as well.
Yeah. And I don't know when you saw the scores, but when your team sent them to me, I'm looking at them going, well, this is a typo. Somebody moved a decimal place or something. Nope, it was real. And
I want to double click on something Ian said there. The different combinations they were able to use. One of the teams found an optimization using Intel compilers on the AMD processor. And in the interviews, this was coming out. And again, the AWS team was saying, yeah, that's all fair. You can do whatever you want.
But that was what was so cool. They really experimented, just like I say, any engineer would, with compiler flags, with kernel versions, with MPI versions. And that was what was so exciting to see, is just the variability and the creativity. And I have to say to all of you students, the mentors got so much out of working with you and seeing how excited you got and how serious you took these challenges. And I got to say, for anyone out there that is not currently sponsoring or is considering sponsoring, do it. It has been such a good situation for our mentors and for our company, just to see the excitement and seeing this next generation of future HPC engineers.
All right. So what was that result? Everyone wants to know now. They're all on the edge of the seats. And
just to put this in perspective, all the results are in seconds, but I'll make it easier for us. So third place on AMD was UTEP with 20 minutes, 9 seconds. Second place on AMD was Tennessee State. Again, the leader
name
for a while with 9 minutes, 24 seconds.
Very good compared to third.
Nice.
So, huge improvement. And now in first place on AMD with 1 minute, 23 seconds. No typo there. We went 20 minutes to 9 minutes to 1 minute, 23 seconds. Prairie View A&M.
Wow.
Yeah.
And now on Intel, again, in third place with 17 minutes, 43 seconds, Cal State Fullerton.
Nice job, Cal State.
Then Tennessee State, 12 minutes, 55 seconds. So it's interesting to see how their run was actually more performant on the AMD than it was on the Intel, whereas the other teams were not. And then in first place, now with 1 minute, 4 seconds, Prairie View A&M.
Fantastic. Wow, what a result. And it really contributed to the competition. Thank you to AWS, the whole team there who worked on mentoring the students in this part of the competition.
And thank you, Ian.
Really just terrific. This came out in all the interviews, how much fun they had.
Yeah, really excited to be a part of it. Look forward to next year.
Fantastic. We will call you again, I know. Thank you.
Thank you, Ian. So at this point in our competition, Dan, Tennessee State, they did very well. They came in second place on both the Intel side and the AMD side. Strong second place. But Prairie View A&M smoked the field. And did that make up the gap in the leaderboard?
Why, yes, it did.
Oh, my goodness.
Out of 500 points that were available to that point, the gap was now 2.21 points
out of 600.
600 that's right. 600.
There were 600 points on the board. Then there was a gap of less than 2.5 points at that point. Prairie View A&M had come out of the chase peloton and was neck and neck with Tennessee State University going into the final. We weren't done.
And we still had the teams from 3rd to 6th that were very close.
All very close, all right next to each other. And now, normally we'd be looking at this saying, all right, it's just a formality, but there's another scoring component, which is the team interviews.
Yes.
And we bring all the teams in for an interview to talk about their experiences with the challenge, how much they all worked on it, what they liked, what they learned, what they didn't like, what their challenges were. And those were graded interviews that were a component of the total score.
The people doing the interviews were HPC experts. They were mainly polled, well, me, but Addison and the mentors.
Yeah, Dan, you and I did all of them, but the mentors were coming in also for a lot of the interviews and
very helpful.
Scored. And, this was going to come down the top of the podium to really who did better on those interviews. And should we get to the final results?
Do you think we should give out some awards, Addison? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I think there should be some people have been on the webinar for 45 minutes.
I guess they're about
to
time.
Reveal a winner.
Okay, let me go ahead and go to the handy dandy screen share again and get the video up.
And as you're doing that, I'll say, remember, 3rd through 6th place was very close. So normally we were going to talk about 3rd, 2nd, 1st, but there were 4 teams that were all.
We just had to.
3rd place.
We had to recognize you. Yes.
Honorable mention. These are the teams that just missed the podium, and to do that, you had to be solid all the way through the competition, Dan.
Absolutely. And, these were the teams that we were seeing in the leaderboards, maybe not 1st or 2nd, but strong 3rds in some cases, 1st in others. I know that Florida took one of the NASPAR benchmarks. Texas Tech got stronger over time, and UTEP was just strong throughout.
We've
not
been mentioning
quite
all
there,
of these schools.
but right along there.
All these schools, all through the competition, and these were all just off the podium. Before we get to 3rd place overall was our other team from Texas Tech, Team Red Raider. Way to go, Team Red Raider from Texas Tech. So that's
Great
both
job.
Texas Tech teams. One was just off the podium, one was on it. Whether or not there's going to be any kind of celebration in the locker room around that, I don't know what kind of bragging rights they get from that, but really well done from both.
So this next school, 2nd place, that's going to tell the story, isn't it?
It was down to Tennessee State versus Prairie View A&M. After Tennessee State had been going wire to wire, Prairie View was putting on a late charge. Let's talk about who's in 2nd place.
Here we go.
2nd place goes to Tennessee State University. What a strong performance for this team, end to end. And we didn't think they could be caught, Dan.
No,
they had found the optimization on HPCG. They're in the top on everything all the way across. Tennessee State was a great team. I loved talking to them.
Oh, yeah, they were fantastic.
Learned a ton.
And I mean, what that tells us is that the overall champion, the Microsoft Azure overall champion of the 2022 Winter Classic Invitational Student Cluster Competition, Prairie View A&M University.
Way to go, Prairie View A&M. And I said this was going to come down to the judges' interviews, and they were the top score across all of the sheets. And that's not a disrespect to Tennessee State, but Prairie View had really wonderful team interviews across the board. They had solid performance. They found the open foam optimization that was hidden in there that nobody else found. They had been solid throughout the competition. This was fair play up and down. They won fair and square at the end, and just had a wonderful interview. Loved talking to this whole team.
Came out of 5th place and took it down. And with that fantastic interview, they did very well on that. Tennessee State did a good interview. In fact, all the teams did good interviews.
There was no one bad. I mean, I love talking to all of them. They were great. Yeah. But Prairie View A&M, I'll confess they were top on my sheet too. And really they got the points in the interview to push them over the top in the end. So there's your podium. Prairie View A&M, congratulations on the big win. Congratulations to all the teams. The thing is, what I cared about was, I said I loved all the interviews. Introducing high performance computing and AI across all of these teams was really rewarding. And the biggest point we want to make, Dan, is recognizing these students on all of the teams for the contributions that we made. Yes. With that, we've got one more set. We're not done, because in honor of that, what we saved for the last was some of these MVPs and the students that we want to recognize with our Brueckner Award scholarships.
Yes. And for those of you that don't know, Rich Brueckner was an institution in HPC as the owner of Inside HPC, one of the largest HPC publications out there. And he passed away in 2019. He was a big fan of student cluster competitions. When I would be over there filming interviews, he would be coming up and going, Dan, how they doing? Who do you like? Who should I go talk to? Who's the best? What do you think? And so the first year, we gave away $10,000 with the first instance of this competition. This year, Addison and I put in $12,000, and Justin from HPE had to, I don't know, not embarrass us.
No, he showered.
He showered.
HPE and Justin Hotard increased it, and we now have $30,000 in Brueckner Award scholarships to spread among the teams.
And we want to welcome Kevin Jorissen from Oracle Cloud Infrastructure. He's the distinguished HPC cloud architect, and we brought him in. They're also a platinum sponsor to announce where all of that money is going. How you doing, Kevin?
Hi. Well, I'm doing fine. It's a sunny Friday afternoon in Seattle, so it doesn't get much better than that. We're very pleased to be part of the competition. It's really a great investment in the next generation of HPC talent. And you never know, we may end up hiring a few of the students who worked so hard in this competition. And so very pleased that this is a competition that actually teaches people things rather than just being a quick sprint to the finish line. So very happy to participate in this. My daily work with Oracle HPC customers uses a lot of the same skills that the students learned during this competition: optimizing code, benchmarking, testing, architecting HPC systems and whatnot. So as far as I'm concerned, you definitely spent your time well. Whether you'll end up being in product design or designing new cars or forecasting the weather or doing university research, there's just HPC in the innovation and the R&D everywhere. And that's why it's interesting. All right. But you guys all want to hear who gets those awards. So let's get to that. It's almost 5:00. All right. So originally, this was organized as to give $2,500 to one student on each of the 12 teams. Because of the circumstances, that's been tweaked a little bit. In a few schools, no members applied for the scholarship. And so in that case, the money is going to be given to a computer science department at the university with a request to use the funds in support of HPC activities. And on a few other teams were very collegial and asked that instead of awarding one particular student, that the money would be split evenly among them. And so, of course, we'll happily go along with that. And congrats on the collegial spirit there. All right. From Tennessee State University, the award will be split between Jared Bauman, Tracy Hampton, and Ahmed Kader. For the University of Texas El Paso, the award goes to Alberto de la Rosa. For Prairie View A&M University, Tawab Atai. For Florida A&M University, Kawika Barabin. For Channel Islands State University, Team Ecos Engineers, Samuel Betancourt. For Fayetteville State University, Andres Ayala Lagunas. For Texas Tech University, Team Matador, Samuel O. Adentunji. For Texas Tech University, Team Red Raider, Dante Ramirez. And for Channel Islands, Team Don't Panic. All right. The award goes to Kenneth Chase. And then finally, so we will also, awards will also go to the Morehouse College Department of Computer Science and the Cal State Fullerton Department of Computer Science. So congratulations, everybody, and good luck in all your future HPC endeavors.
Thank you so much. We really appreciate it, Kevin. It's always fun to be able to give away a whole bunch of money, isn't it? I mean, I've never done it, but I'm thinking it would be fun.
Sure, it is.
Appreciate your help there, Kevin. And again, to HPE for increasing those awards and to all the students for their participation. This is something I hope we're going to be able to come back and do again and again, Dan.
I think so too.
Thank you, Kevin, for giving out those awards.
I don't want to contemplate doing it again yet, Addison, because I'm still doing it. I still have more stuff I've got to put out. So be sure and watch HPC Wire for some behind the scenes footage and a couple more interviews. But it's been great to work on this with you. And it's been great to work with all the students and the mentors and the sponsors.
I'll again thank the mentors, the sponsors, the students, absolutely, Dan. But I'll wrap up by saying thank you to you personally. As I tried to emphasize at the start of this studio update show, this was your brainchild. You were doing this before you were working with me, before we had the yellow blazers. I'm honored that I get to sit next to you and help carry it on. And I hope we get to do it again.
I appreciate it. And thank you for embracing this so much and for embracing the yellow blazer. You were not a fan early on.
I had to be convinced, and I'm only a little bit embarrassed that I love them. It
makes
great.
all the difference in the world.
I'm gonna treasure it.
Fancy
Dan.
studio update show. Go out and watch those. But thank you all for joining us. We really appreciate. Thank you for competing. Think about doing it next year. And this goes out to the mentors, the sponsors, and the students. You'll be hearing from us round about September. Maybe a little earlier this time.
Absolutely. And we'll get to the other student cluster competitions around the calendar. For this one, we'll see you next winter. Thank you, Dan.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Addison. Thank you, everybody. And that is the end of our webinar. You may go about your business now.